Hey guys, what's up? My name is Anthony, and welcome to the second episode of BnA Weekly. This is a weekly, quote-unquote, series I do on my channel where we just talk about sports, have some fun, nothing really too serious, and yeah, we have some fun on here. Like these segments that I have on the right, I'll have them timestamped. There are videos that I don't really feel like by themselves would make an interesting video, but if you culminate all these little ideas, you can make one great video, and let's see how it works. Alright, moving on to where I was right, where I was wrong. So the NHL and the NBA playoffs. The NHL playoffs, in my bracket challenge, I only got 1 out of 7 correct. Yeah, so many upsets. I said earlier in the year that the Blue Jackets were a sleeper pick this year, but I had both of them in the beginning of the season in my conference final, so I leaned towards Tampa Bay. And now Columbus is facing the Bruins, and they're tied 1-1 in that series. And it was just all over the board, just upsets, Islanders, sweep. I was like, what the hell's going on? Things were crazy. But in the NBA, I was 7-1. The only series I got wrong was the Jazz and the Houston Rockets. I thought the Rockets would be caught sleeping by the Jazz. And yeah, the Jazz played some tight games. Not really, but yeah, the Jazz just didn't have a shooter. They did pretty well against James Harden. Not awful, but not great. Kind of wish they stole a game or two earlier in the series and it would have been more interesting, but they once they went down 3-0, you knew it was it. But yeah, so I crushed the NBA, which, I mean, the NBA is really predictable. You had the Orlando Magic versus the Toronto Raptors. But yeah, let's see how we do in the second round in both. Well, obviously I can't do that well in the second round in the NHL because none of my teams made it, but yeah, so there's that. Let's go on to the next segment.
That is blasphemous. That is blasphemous.
Now, the moment that I have been waiting for personally for about 24 hours or so.
Same here. Same here. You're not alone on this, Will. I mean, if the desk wasn't high, I'd kick my feet up.
50 touchdowns to 8 interceptions and a 70% completion percentage, even though he constantly threw the ball down the field. Haskins, who got better and better as the year went on, whose teammates love him, who's an obvious natural-born leader who has the confidence bordering on arrogance of a guy who believes he will be great. Daniel Jones at 6. There is a word for the Daniel Joneses of the world. By the way, even if he turns out to be a great quarterback, you know what it is? It's a phrase. Day 2 guy. You don't have to spend a first-round pick on Daniel Jones. Haskins went to Washington. Did you notice any other team take a quarterback? No. You could have gotten him in the second round. He's a classic Day 2 guy. A Duke quarterback who, for his career, 52 touchdowns, 29 interceptions. Haskins had 50 and 8 in 1 year. A 60% completion percentage, which by my calculations, I didn't major in math, but that's 10% lower, right? That's not 70%, that's 60%. That guy, because he works with Cutcliffe, who worked with the Manning brothers, you spent a 6th overall pick. Do this thought experiment. Let's say as soon as he picked 6th overall, Daniel Jones, he tried to trade him for a late first-round pick. Wouldn't have gotten it. Could he trade Daniel Jones right now for a second-round pick? I don't know. But he spent the 6th pick in the draft. Let me tell you something. If that's the case, Daniel Jones got to go to the Hall of Fame now. When Gettleman sits up there and says,
That is blasphemous. That is blasphemous.
Now for my Chili's hot take of the week. Oh no, I'm just gonna have a new sponsor every week. So I might change this to a thing I actually bet on, put money down on. But I think the Columbus Blue Jackets, I'm riding with them. They're gonna win the Stanley Cup. They have a lot of time to rest now. Next they play Boston. And then they're gonna have to face the Islanders or Hurricanes or Capitals. I think they have an easy ride all the way to the Stanley Cup, and I think the Western Conference is weak. So I think John Tortorella and the Blue Jackets, they won their first playoff series, but they're going all the way to the Stanley Cup and they're going to win it. Speaking about another thing I was right about, I know I love being right about stuff. Seattle, I mean, anybody could have picked that the NHL was going to go to Seattle. It was pretty clear and obvious. But yeah, so they're gonna have a team, and I decided I'm gonna do a live reaction to some of the name choices that they may pick. So yeah, let's just go with it. I have a list in front of me. Okay, let's go. The Seattle Emeralds. Oh, that's a pretty good idea. The Emerald City. I like the idea. It's kind of glistening. Not really that tempting though. What would their uniforms look like? I'm trying to think. It doesn't really fit with any other team in the NHL. The Seattle Seaheads. It kind of sounds Seahawks, Heads, Steelers. I don't really like that one. It doesn't really make any sense to me. Yeah, what does it say? Washington designated the steelhead trout as the state's official fish. Oh, that's so misleading. I don't understand that. It's the Seattle Tsunami. Kind of has a little ring to it. It's this S sound, kind of, if you have like a little lisp, it kind of sounds right. Seattle Tsunami. It sounds like you have a lisp. But, they're not really known for having a lot of tsunamis. And plus, they play on ice, so I don't really see how that's a good idea. The Seattle Thunder. It kind of has, why would they name two teams? A lot of teams have the same names as far as, like, different sports. The Thunder, it would be kind of weird how the Seattle Sonics moved to Oklahoma City and became the Oklahoma City Thunder. That'd be kind of weird if they just named themselves the Seattle Thunder. The Seattle Totems, don't really see how this is tempting. I think the jerseys have would have the potential to look really, really good. I don't know why. I feel like that would be a nice design. The Totems. But it sounds like, how tempting is that just by, like, we're just stand there and defeat the rest. Like, totems are, like, there's nothing tempting about that. Seattle Sasquatch, this just sounds like an AHL team. It doesn't sound like a real team. It kind of sounds just like a joke of a team. So I don't think anybody would take them seriously. Seattle Rain, like, what's next? Seattle Snow? That'd be pretty good. That's a pretty good one. I just came out with that one now. So Seattle Rain, it rains a lot, but you don't call, like, I guess it would be a good name, like the Tornadoes, like but they don't really get a lot of tornadoes. Like, nothing really tempting about rain. It's just like, oh yeah, it's the Seattle partly cloudy skies. Like, that's not really that enticing. Well, the Seattle Sun, like the Phoenix Sun. That's a bad name. I just dissed on the Suns. Seattle Breakers. It says something about its watery geography. I don't really understand what that means. Yeah, let's go to the next one. Seattle Shield. I think you're just trying to do some alliteration here. I think Shield would be a good thing. Like, maybe it represents, like, the police, the Shield, the force. Like, it would be like the Seattle, like, it would be like the Seattle Riot or something. Oh, Seattle Riot. Why not? Like, it sounds like kind of like rebellious. Like, oh yeah, we can defend. Seattle Metropolitans. I think that was a throwback to a couple of years ago. I think that used to be their old team name. It'll be kind of cool if they bring it back, but kind of like the Mets. I don't know. Kind of New York City is known for Metropolitans. And then the one that I saw is the Seattle Sockeyes, or Seattle Salmon. No, Sockeyes are a type of fish. I think it's more tempting than salmon, because what is salmon going to do, like, jump out of the water and hit you? I think Sockeyes it just sounds good. Like, I don't even know what a sockeye was, honestly. I'm going to be totally honest, but, like, it sounds pretty tempting. It sounds like a ranger or like something tempting, even though you don't know what a sockeye is. It still sounds good, and I like the ring to it, Seattle Sockeyes. So I think they should go with Seattle Sockeyes. Or I kind of like, now that I'm looking at it, I like the Totems and the Shield or the Riot or something like that. I wouldn't mind that. But the Rain and the Sasquatch kind of just sound like jokes to me. Okay, welcome to a segment I like to call Best Value Bets. So we're going to blindly go into Las Vegas. We're not going to look at the betting odds, and I'm going to give you my betting odds, but just ranked. I'm not going to do, like, specific values. And I'm telling you how strong I believe in, too. And we're going to determine the best value bets for the NFC, who going to the Super Bowl, which team will. And, yeah, we're going to base this off of how good the team is and their history of winning. So, like, teams like the Lions, it's like, oh, yeah, they're going to be pretty good this year. I have them going to the playoffs, but as far as winning, they only won one playoff game in the past 25 years. So let's just start. So we're going to start off with number one, who has the best odds to make it out. And believe it or not, I think it's the Packers this year. I'm looking at them. They're due to have a rebound season. You're telling me 2 seasons in a row they didn't make the playoffs. And now you have Aaron Rodgers. He's going to be a little more healthy this year. He was playing up with one leg last year. And he's going to be more motivated than ever. He has new targets. Oh, yeah, he doesn't really have any new targets for wide receivers, which is a problem, but he already has chemistry. But the loss of Randall Cobb is going to affect them. But I think this defense, yeah, it's a championship defense. You brought some players in from the Bears. You got rid of HaHa Clinton-Dix, but you got a new safety in the draft. I think this defense is a championship defense if they can pull it all together. So I think the Packers have the best chance to make it out as it stands right now. The second chance, I would say, would be the Bears. I think the Bears took a little bit of a step back this year, but remember the Rams last year? You lost to the Falcons in the first round. You had all this promise. You lost that game at home. It was the first year of your head coach, but a lot of that is happening with the Bears. You have a second-year head coach, third-year quarterback, and the system kind of fits. Mitch Trubisky didn't really play well down the stretch, but I think that's due to injury, and you got in some weapons from the draft for him. You got rid of Jordan Howard, but you brought in a running back. You kind of stole a running back in this draft. Got a lot of great value in this draft. And I think the Bears are going to be up there again. So the top two teams are going to be in the NFC North. Next, I would have to put the Eagles. Their secondary is still a major question, but this offensive line is great. I think their defense up front with Fletcher Cox is great. You got rid of Michael Bennett, which is a little worrisome, but you did replace him. That's fine. But Carson Wentz, it's a make or break year for him. I think he's going to start off pretty strong this year, and he doesn't have playoff experience, but he knows what it's like. He's been on the bench. He knows what the preparation is like. None of it's quite the same as going on the field, but I think the Eagles are probably third best. Next, I would say the Rams are fourth. Why would I say the Rams are fourth? Because they made it last year. The main question for this team is Todd Gurley and his whatever knee it is, his arthritic knee. That's the main question for this team. I think the whole team rides or dies on this. The draft wasn't great. You dressed linebacker, but I think you could have gotten greater value in the first round for a linebacker. Actually, not really. But the Rams, they're in a good position. You have the coach, you have the quarterback. Cooper Kupp is coming back. And the whole thing just rides on this offensive line too, because it's only getting older with I forgot his name, but the offensive line, a really big problem for the Rams. Next, I probably would have the Falcons. Why the Falcons? The defense was rattled with injuries last year, and a lot of those players are coming back. And then you solidified your offensive line. You still have Julio Jones. The Falcons had an underrated draft. You picked the guys that you wanted. Even though they're not really sexy picks, I think the Falcons should return. They're going to be fifth. Next, I have to give some respect for the Cowboys. Number 6, the Cowboys. They don't really have a history of winning with, Dak in the past 25 years, Dak Prescott, but this is a historic franchise. Usually when expectations are high, they slip down. That's what the expectations are. When they're not expected to do anything, they play really well. I remember 3-5 last year. They're like, oh, this team sucks. And then all of a sudden they play well. A lot of returning players didn't have the best draft, but that's not really going to have an impact on this year. This is going to be one of 2 last years. I think the Cowboys are going to be able to compete. Depends if they pay Dak Prescott this year, Ezekiel Elliott. Things can fall apart real quickly, so I think they're going to see their shot in the dark right now. Next, I would say the Saints. Yeah, the Saints. They had a pretty good draft. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. They picked the guys that they needed. Eric McCoy as their center. They had a pretty good draft. It's like you didn't need to get 50 players, developmental players, like the Patriots ended up doing, because they have a lot of holes that they can develop for later. The Saints are a Super Bowl winning team now. You address your secondary a little bit. You're still going to have to address Eli Apple and his spot on this team. The secondary isn't that great, but that's going to be a major question. But the Saints are going to have a question. The main thing I would say is Drew Brees, whether he could stay healthy throughout the end of the year, and I'd give that a big maybe. And 8th, I would say the Giants. This is a here or there one. This season can go great or it can go really bad. It all depends on whether this defense can shape up real quick. I think it's a really young defense, but I think if they can rally together towards the end of the season, this could be a championship defense. You have Eli Manning, who's been there. That's the only reason why I'm giving this team a shot. That's why I have them 8th. Next, I would probably 9th. I would probably have the Seahawks. Russell Wilson. You're going to have a really young defense. You got rid of Frank Clark, but these guys are going to have to, kind of like the Giants, but I think the Seahawks defense has more potential than the Giants does right now, but I think in the long term, the Giants defense is better. They just need to address their pass rush a little bit more. Our secondary is great right now. We have a stacked secondary, hopefully. It depends how these players develop. But the Seahawks, their defensive line is, they basically are good everywhere. They have a pretty solid defense. You're going to need some old defensive players on this team, KJ Wright, Bobby Wagner, to step up and teach these guys, be leaders. Russell Wilson, he's going to be running around a little bit, but he's a big contract guy, and I think they overexceed expectations this year, and they're going to take a little bit of a step back this year. Next, I would probably have the 49ers. Why do I have them this low? Because Jimmy Garoppolo hasn't proven anything to me yet. They have a really good coach. Don't get me wrong, but they only had one wide receiver in the draft. Deebo Samuel didn't really have a lot of picks, and they had a lot of holes to fill, especially in that secondary. Richard Sherman, this pass rush is gonna be elite. There's gonna be elite pass rush, but the secondary, even all you have is Richard Sherman back there. I don't really know anybody else that's gonna really make plays in their secondary. Offensive line is gonna be great, but there's still a big question on Jimmy G whether he could make it to the Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl. That's a major question. So that's why I have them 10th, right behind the Seahawks. I think they have their ceiling is really high, but they have a lower floor, so that's why it's kind of confusing for me. Next, I would probably have the Lions. They're not a history of winning, like I mentioned before, but you're basically the Patriots, but you just need to start winning. And yeah, I think it's gonna happen eventually. Matt Stafford had a bounce back season last year, so I think he returns to normal this year with his like 4,500 yards and things like that. And then for the rest of the teams, I'd throw in like the Vikings probably next, then the Cardinals, then the Redskins, because they're just young quarterbacks I don't believe are going to be able to make the Super Bowl in their first year. Historically, it's not good. It's not power rankings. It's the chances to make the Super Bowl. And yeah, finally, I'm probably missing one team. Let me scan them real quick. Yeah, the Panthers, no. Buccaneers, no. Those teams are just not ready quite yet. I had the Buccaneers probably 12th. But yeah, now let's look at the odds. So looking at the odds, we have the Saints number 1. I don't think this is a good value bet. Oh god, 19-4, no. Rams and Bears, pretty similar. I wouldn't bet the Rams this year. I think that they have a major question. You can't. Their running back situation is so confusing. I'm not sure what they're gonna do. They're gonna have to play Todd Gurley limited, and he's the life and blood of this team. Chicago Bears. This is a pretty good bet, especially if you want to bet like the future, like what happened last year. I think 15-2 is good. Minnesota, 8-1, no. Eagles, this is a pretty good value bet. You have this team that made the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Remember that? And yeah, so Carson Wentz was an MVP. Don't trust him that much, but at 8-1, I don't think that's a horrible bet. Next, we have the Packers at 12-1. Oh my god, I would bet this right now. Actually, no, I'm gonna bet this right now. I'm gonna put $10 in the Packers, making it all. Yeah, so Dallas Cowboys, I think this is about even value. Atlanta, I think this is a pretty good value bet because a lot of teams were picking them to win the Super Bowl last year, and they didn't really change that much. Matt Ryan's a year older, but he didn't really get rocked that much last year. 49ers, Seahawks, everything else, I wouldn't really bet. But if you want to get crazy, really crazy, I'd take a bet on the New York Giants or the Washington Redskins this year. If it depends, because you never know. Case Keenum can just be the starting quarterback throughout the entire year. I don't think there's going to be much pressure for Dwayne Haskins to start. I don't think there should be. I think they should just go with Case Keenum, keep on going with him, because Dwayne Haskins needs a lot of time to develop, and I think they realize that. So I would bet the Giants or the Redskins to make it, but mainly because one of them is probably going to win. The odds are like, 2 and 3 or something that one of them does, because the Cowboys can't win it this year. So, things may, accelerate, and things may, eventually meet into a Super Bowl. The Giants have an experienced quarterback. They're going to have a better offensive line. And I think if they're underrated throughout the beginning of the year, they can collect some wins. And towards the end of the year, they can collect some momentum going into playoffs.